Thank you all for joining us. And today we're going to talk about the ancient mysteries of Egypt and a very exciting tour we have coming up called the Return of the Kepler Cycle. And of course, on this tour, you have myself, Jonny Enoch, and I'm an esoteric researcher. You have with us the great Mohamed Ibrahim, who is an amazing Egyptologist and hieroglyphics expert. And with no introduction needed, of course, we have Jay Weidner, who is a master of the esoteric ancient symbolism and the author of The Great Cross of Hendai. And with us is also Zsuzsanna Lotus, who specializes in looking at the ancient mysteries, archaeology, and decoding the consciousness technologies that go along with it. So today we want to talk about what you can expect with going on a tour like this. We're going to get into, the different things going on in the world right now that are affecting travel and how you can make that easier and have a good understanding of what's happening in Egypt and abroad, as well as we're going to talk about these mysteries and we're going to get into some of the new discoveries made. But first of all, I thought to go through this process, we'd start off with Mohamed. Mohamed, do you want to tell us about yourself and what we can expect right now with taking a trip to Egypt?
Hi, Jonny, and how are you all? Look, this tour is truly one of the tours I was dreaming to do for a long time. There are so many items in this tour. I did it for hundreds of times, but there is one trip in this tour I didn't do before. I do it in a private tour like me and some of my colleagues, but I didn't take any foreigners to this site before. I visited Sinai hundreds of times. I went to San Catherine, to Sharm el-Sheikh, to Dahab, to many popular places. But there is a place called Sarabit el-Kadem. It is almost in the middle of Sinai. This place is considered as a sacred place from the ancient Egyptian times. So imagine me for 20 years planning for such tour. And it's not my mistake, because this place was closed all the time. Recently, it was opened, but not only opened for public visit. No, it is opened for visitors who have private permission. So we are going to have this private permission to visit such a place. This place is the favorite place for Hathor, the lady of the turquoise. And we are going to learn in this journey that the ancient Egyptians paid great attention to the use of different kinds of stones, semi-precious and precious stones like lapis lazuli and turquoise. These were the most two important gems for the ancient Egyptians. Of course, some other types of semi-precious and precious stones, but turquoise, and we will talk in details about this in our tour in Egypt. So plus visiting the Great Pyramids, Saqqara, Dahshur, Aswan, Luxor, and some important and unexplored corners in each site, because I can tell you that there are hundreds of millions of visitors visited Karnak Temple as an example, but none of them visited some certain spots where I'm gonna show you in this trip. So adding all these sites to Sarabit el-Kadem, that is considered my life tour. And I am actually waiting for this tour to start just to visit the Sarabit el-Kadem.
Now, Zsuzsanna or Jay, did you guys want to jump in and talk about what's exciting for you guys on this tour?
It's what's not exciting. I mean, the whole thing sounds like it's going to be almost a sensory overload. I hope it is. And so no, it sounds absolutely amazing. It's going to be extremely comprehensive tour, probably the most comprehensive Egyptian tour I've ever seen.
Absolutely. And Zsuzsanna, you've been to Egypt numerous times, and Egypt has been the focus of many of your studies and research. What is it that excites you the most about this tour?
During this time, what I think it will be a very special one, because it's a very special time of the world, after this pandemic situation. So if you take a look at the tourism, I think that in the past year, fewer tourists have been there in Egypt. So when we will be there, I believe in that the energies and everything will be much clearer and better and stronger and much more powerful this year.
I absolutely agree with you. But to reiterate everything that the three of you have just said, what Mohamed is saying could not be more, relevant to what Zsuzsanna and Jay just said, because this place, Sarabit al-Kadam, which is this great mountain of secrets, this is the Moses mountain. This is where in Exodus 32:20 of the Bible, it says Moses looked down from the mountain and saw that they were fashioning a golden calf below. And this is something very important. Mohamed has pointed this out to me before too. He'd always say to me, he'd say, Johnny, do you not know that Hathor has the ears of a calf? Okay, so in this temple that's up there, this secret temple that Sir William Flinders Petrie found, he found that over there, they were working in this area of a temple of Hathor. And what it says in the Bible, it says that they were ordered to grind this golden calf down and burn it and consume it as a powder, which is a very strange and interesting connection we have to alchemy. Now, with these very clear energies we have at this time that we'll get into, Jay, you've spent a considerable amount of time in your work over the years with the Great Cross of Hendai and everything you've looked at, looking at the mysteries of alchemy. Can you tell us how alchemy relates to this process and what we're talking about?
Well, first off, how did the slaves get so much gold? I think you have to ask that question to begin with. If they had enough gold on them as they're escaping to build a golden calf, that's a lot of gold. And slaves usually don't have gold. So just pointing that out. So yeah, the alchemy was the science of Egypt. It was also the art of Egypt. All of their symbols and all of their art and all of their architecture was all built around this concept of bringing down the ether and bringing it down. There's the ocean that we swim in, the invisible ocean that we swim in, that science refuses to recognize. This is at the center of the ancient knowledge, but really at the center of ancient Egyptian. And so they would they would create with the right kind of rock and everything these etheric structures and that would draw down this energy for health. And then of course on the ground they would make formulas like the gold, the powdered gold that they would actually drink it. And then that would add, especially the gold, which would move the resistance to the ether in the body and make the ether flow more easily through the body, because the ether is essentially has electromagnetic qualities to it. So I would imagine that if we were living in that environment of, say, 5,000 years ago in Egypt, that our lifespan would be much longer, like a lot longer. And we would probably almost glow. Literally, we would almost be glowing because there'd be so much etheric energy inside our system that it would just be emanating everywhere. So I think that people have to understand what alchemy is, and that it's not just one thing. It can be music, it can be herbs, it can be architecture, it can be stones, it can be, it's how you manifest the ether in your own personal life and existence. And we live in a society that denies all this, builds square buildings and made out of steel and glass, which actually repel the ether. So we're actually moving in the opposite direction. And I personally am hoping that trips like this and discussions like this are going to bring back, it's not going to happen now, it's not going to happen in 10 years, it's going to be 50 years for this to happen. But people start beginning to change the way they construct their buildings. We begin looking back to Egypt and try to practice the things that they were practicing. and return to a more centered existence.
I absolutely agree with you. And I do want to get Mohamed's comments about this as well, and how this relates with these various types of stone. But also, Zsuzsanna, you have spent a lot of time, looking at archaeology, and you've been involved in archaeological digs in Europe and looked at subterranean complexes and networks under castles and old ruins. How important would you say that these various types of stone are? And do they affect the energy? Do they affect consciousness?
These type of stones, what we were talking about now?
That's correct.
These type of stones, people in the past or in the ancient times, they were much more conscious about living together with nature and used all of these energies. So yes, absolutely, I would say that this is not a coincidence that they would use it to power up all of these facilities and all of these buildings, and to work together and be together and breathe together with Mother Earth and connected to the stars and the universe.
Absolutely, and Mohamed always is pointing that out. Mo, would you say then, with the various types of stone that you're going to show people, would you say they're going to be astonished when they take the tour and you show them, the various layers and how organized it was and how complex the various types of granite are, let's say, or what would you say people are going to take away when they come visit in person with you?
Yeah. Number one, we must understand that alchemy means Egypt.
Yep.
Egypt is alchemy. Kemet is Kemia in Arabic language. Kemet, Kemia. And Kemia is Kemet if I read it in a certain way, because what we call it circular T in Arabic language is T in English, letter T in English and other languages. So Kemet, Kemia, Chem, Alchem. Al means also the chemistry. So all relates to Egypt or Kemet. So Egypt invented chemistry.
That's right.
When Jay was talking about the houses we are living in made out of concrete and steel, he's absolutely right. I put my own story about the Egyptian construction, how to get the energy and get the target of each building. You must follow 4 things. Okay, I didn't invent this, but I managed to recognize the 4 rules to get the function of each site or each building. Number 1, location. You don't choose any location. You must choose specific locations. We will talk about this in the tour. Number 2, the material. Okay, not any material is good for each location. Number 3, the design of the building. Squares, circles, rectangulars, pyramids. And number 4, the alignment with the sky. So yes, truly, we are building our constructions nowadays, and we don't know why. We just find an empty piece of land or available piece of land, and we built something looks nice, but it is not something built according to a geometric design, to also the directions of the sites. Is it facing the cardinal directions or no? Or the location of the entrance? That makes a great difference when you put the door of the house in the north side or the south side or the east or the west. So ancient Egypt were masters in doing such designs. So this is what we are going to know more about during this tour. And when was the time and how they used granite instead of limestone and instead of sandstone. And when was sandstone was more valuable than granite in certain places. Like when we go to Aswan, we will find that all the buildings or most of the buildings in Aswan made out from sandstone. And Aswan is, as we know, Aswan is the big quarry of granite in Egypt. So you are in the middle of the granite quarry and you are using sandstone to build your constructions. That is one of the big questions, but we have the answer. So yes, in this tour, people are going to learn about the ancient, the use of different types of stones, how and why that happened in ancient Egypt.
That's incredible. And, you know, when you come to Egypt on a tour like this, there's nothing that can prepare you for this. No amount of documentaries, books, shows, articles, pictures you've seen online. When you see this enormous structure, let's say even of the Great Pyramid, this magnificent edifice, you know, when you stand before it, when you walk inside it and you see the layers of granite, sandstone, limestone, it's so overwhelming to you that it is just the first taste that you're going to get. But the places that you'll see these temples, the inscriptions on the wall, they'll cry out to your soul. They will evoke a feeling in you that is so magnificent. You'll feel the energies in each place. And it has a lot to do with the stone. As we've discussed, when you have granite, let's say, what's so significant about granite? Well, we know it's made of silica, which is where you get silicon microchips from. And of course, we know that it's an insulator and conductor of electromagnetic energy, just like the piezoelectrical energy you get of quartz crystal, which is what you're looking at. These folks knew exactly what they were doing. And that's the most magnificent thing. When you go with Mohamed Ibrahim to Egypt, first of all, you're coming with somebody who has mastered hieroglyphics front and back. And I know people all the time that come to Mohamed for translations. He's very humble, but I will tell you, this man knows how to translate hieroglyphics. He has gone along with the best in this field. You look at the biggest groups that have been out there, from the Seam Haramide, Robert Schoch, Chris Dunn, you name it, he's done it. You know, multiple tours with Brian Forrester, everyone out there. Mohammed's been going in there and dusting off the glyphs off the side of these temples like blowing on an old dusty Nintendo cartridge, you know, decoding the mysteries. It's absolutely amazing. But, you know, coming into this, I'm very excited that not only Mohamed is coming in with bringing you the formulas and his own theories. He's got some incredible theories about Egypt before, which are going to blow all of you away with when you look at them. They're just amazing. But, you know, Jay, very, very excited that you're also involved with this, because with what you're bringing into this picture, you're bringing in so many years of decoding the mysteries. You've been to Egypt yourself, you know, and looked at the layers of symbolism, the mysteries of who these folks were, the connections to the ancient Phoenicians, Baalbek, everything that comes into there. And Zsuzsanna, having your expertise on not only the architectonics and these layers and how this fits into the greater picture, and unraveling this picture together with consciousness, we all bring a piece to this puzzle. But what's really exciting for me is that everybody watching this, you watching this at home right now, you coming along, you're going to be involved in this adventure. You're making these investigations and uncovering things together, and you couldn't have a better time to go. As Zsuzsanna said at the beginning, the energy is not only really important right now, and it's very clear for folks that are going there right now, you're not being swarmed and overwhelmed by a bunch of people in every direction. You're getting about medium-sized crowds, which is really great. And it gives you time to really focus and get centered in this energy. And right now is a very important time to come. Now, if you don't mind me saying, Jay, one of the things that I'm very excited about also in our group, we have such a collective and great, brilliant group that's coming along, also people that have signed up for this tour. And your wife that's coming along, Sharon, she's coming along. Not only is she specializes in ancient forms of dance, but singing in the ancient Egyptian. And she told me the other day some very important verses that she knows, that when she told me this, it immediately caught my attention to the relevance and the importance of why we're taking the trip at this time. Now, this is the return of the Kepher cycle. Now, this is a very important cycle that we're entering. And as Mohammed's pointed out, this is very, you know, apparent when we look around the world right now. But this is a time of an opening of great energies, not only symbolized by the scarab, but this opening of energies and stargates. Sharon was telling me of these ancient hymns that connect over to Horus, opening up as the messenger with Isis and moving forward with Hathor, that there is the opening of the stargates. And we're going to be visiting places that some people have no idea, where there are these ancient inscriptions and what we might say are deactivated or Stargate entrances that haven't been used. And as Mohamed has said, that there's these ancient passageways that open it up almost like open sesame. So I'm excited as a group as to what we can discover in these harmonics and what's there. Mohamed, maybe we can jump into this subject. What do you think about the idea of there being ancient stargates in Egypt? Oh, Mohamed, we've lost your audio.
Let me first tell you that I came from a solid foundation of studies. If you asked me about stargates 20 years ago, I will absolutely deny any story about stargates. And I will say this is exaggeration. This is just a symbolic word. But as you said, when you study hieroglyphics in a good way, and every time I read or I read more in hieroglyphic, I find that the Egyptian writings could give deep and deeper and deeper meanings. It depends on the mentality of the person who is reading this. If you are shallow mentality, you will understand the shallow meaning of the symbol. If you are a deep-minded person, you will understand deep. And the more knowledgeable you are, the more information you will find in the Egyptian symbol. So I can tell you, like 5 years ago, maybe a little bit more, 5 or 7 maximum, I started to pay attention to the symbol gate, and next to it, another symbol star. And I started to ask myself, like, what does it mean? Okay, because it doesn't seem to be just a symbol or just a title for the king, because I didn't find this title repeated to all the kings. Like we have some repeated titles, Nisupiti, almost all the Egyptian kings have this title. Sara, most of them. Nebkhau, the Lord of the Livings, most of them. Nebtawi, the Lord of the Two Lands, most of them. But the Stargate, not all of them, few kings. And in Dandara temple, it was represented as one gate with many stars. And in another side, the same gate, but with different number of stars. So as if this is not just a drawing, it's a message, okay? So when I used my very basic knowledge to understand this, I couldn't find any way else to read it except Stargate. And when I say Stargate, it is the right way, because someone told me it's started with a gate and then a star. So how you call it Stargate? It must be gate star. I don't find any sense in what he said, but it's a way to mislead me. But I told him, no, this is the right way in the Egyptian way. And in the English way, it means a stargate, because in Arabic way, we say bawaba, gate, and nugum, star. This is the Egyptian way. This is how the ancient Egyptian will read it. So he wrote the title in a perfect way, okay? Because we put the adjective after the noun. So gate, star, in English, stargate. And guess what? I remember I posted something about Zawit al-Aryan pyramid, and you was talking about the extraterrestrial connection between this pyramid and some other symbols, and someone was denying your story.
Yes.
Okay, you know that the only stone or the only piece with carvings found in that place a long time ago, and that piece unfortunately disappeared, but we still have the drawings from the Egyptologist Alexander Barsanti. Alexander Barsanti, he drew the name, and before the name there was the word star. Okay, the same way he imitated the later rulers of Egypt, and the most famous one of them is Thutmose III, where we are going to see his title, Stargate. Okay, yes.
Really?
Yeah, so next to the name, it is the word star. And guess what? That The name also itself is quite interesting. The name is Neb-Ka. Neb means Lord or all, okay? Ka is the etheric body, or Ka is the spirit. Okay, I'm not talking about the soul, the spirit. And this will be also a good subject. We will talk about it during the tour. Okay, but it is not the physical element of the person. So we are talking about extraterrestrials. We are talking about etheric bodies. We are talking about spirits. We are talking about connections between all of them. So yes, ancient Egypt had great connection with the, let's say, I'm not saying aliens, I'm not saying beings for sure, but I'm saying powers from the space. So for sure, Egypt had a good connection, or at least they understood how to collect or to receive such energies from the other planets. And by the way, last thing, that in the astronomy, or in the tools of astronomy, we do have a tool called horoscope, right? We know the scope. So what is Horus or Horo? Because the ancient Egyptians named most of the planets and the stars in our galaxy, starting with the title Horus, Hor. Like Mars. Mars, as an example, the Egyptian call it Red Horus. Okay. Jupiter called Elder Horus. And so many things like this. So that's why horoscope is originally an Egyptian name.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Did you want to jump in there, Jay, since you were just agreeing to that?
Well, I just want to say something that there, I can't remember who it was. I believe it was a science fiction writer, but they laid out like the 4 reasons why human beings aren't from Earth, and we couldn't possibly even have evolved on Earth. And those 4 reasons, I think, are that we fire to eat food. We can't live without a roof over our head. We can't live without clothing. Even in the jungle, you'll still get hypothermia, because I got hypothermia at the equator one time. And there's another one, but you have to have all these things or you can't live. So we are not from here. Human beings are not from this planet. We did not evolve from this planet. It's absolutely obvious. And yeah, Mohammed's right. It was Egypt was where they came down from. And I don't know if we emanated here through the stargates. It's very, very likely we did. And so we have to kind of come to grips with the idea that we're not actually from this planet. We came from somewhere else and we're planted here for whatever reasons. And right now, the US Navy is about to release a report on the ETs and our interactions with them. And that's coming right while we're going to be in Egypt, by the way. I wonder if they're riding the Kepler cycle or something, because these guys at the top know all of this, okay? And they operate with astrology and with the placement of things, and they know all the esoteric stuff. So it doesn't surprise me that this report's going to be coming out just around this time. And I hear it's a pretty explosive report. So we aren't from here, and human beings built Egypt. Maybe we had ET help and other help, but we built Egypt. We did, and we didn't use slaves. That's not how it worked. And it was an incredible society. It's so incredible that we can't even imagine what ancient Egypt was really like.
That's it. And that actually reminds me of some of the subjects that Zsuzsanna has been talking about. We're actually going to be covering some of that in our upcoming talk at Contact in the Desert. But also, there's been a lot of talk lately about UFO craft that have been seen that look like it's in the shape of a pyramid, not only over in DC in these areas with lots of witnesses, but also over by the Kremlin. So What's interesting about that, bringing it back to what you said, Jay, And this made me think of something Mohamed and Zsuzsanna have talked about. Mohamed has talked about how there's a connection to the ancient Hungarians, for example, in Egypt, because we see the Magyar, what they're called, is there's a similarity there to the ancient hieroglyphic for a cup or a mug, which is also the Magyar, which is something Mohamed taught me. But it's interesting because, when we look at those parts, we have a sphinx-like structure up in the Transylvanian mountains when you go look over in there in Buceci. And there's been great things found underneath there and all kinds of mysteries. They've talked about giants and underground pyramids. There's a great history there. But Zsuzsanna, you've talked about this connection also with Mars, these ancient people in those areas, as well as a Sirius connection and an Egyptian one. Can you tell us how that relates and how they might have come here or used stargates even?
Yeah, well, but I would like to refer back a little bit to what Mohamed said about the chemistry and chemia, because it's a very interesting connection with the Hungarian language. Because in Hungarian, chemistry is chemia. The word is chemia, it's just the same. So yeah, it's definitely, if I would say yes, there is a big relationship between the Hungarians, the Han Alliance, and the Egypt and the ancient Egypt. But first of all, I have to mention that the ancient Egypt had never been a part of the Hungarian or the Hun Alliance. But yes, definitely there are close cultural links, similar language, and they were relatives indeed. And the strength of their relationship is shown by the fact, for example, that they had conferences together, the Hun Alliance and the ancient Egypt, and by the fact that, for example, when Egypt came under the threat from the invaders from Atlantis, then the treasures of Egypt were transferred to the territory of the Hun Alliance, to the Carpathians, of course, temporarily. But it's interesting that one of the treasures were the Ark of the Covenant. So it's an interesting addition of this.
Wasn't there, Zsuzsanna? We've talked about this before, that the Taltos, the Hungarian shamans, wore a very similar garb that you'd find in ancient Egypt. But there's an ancient stone that you pointed out that they have over there that says there's a connection to them being connected to Mars, which is also interesting because when we look at this mystery of where all these folks could be coming from, whether it's Sirius or Mars, we also see there's a connection in the northern Black Sea, Crimea, Scandinavia, and in those areas to what looks like these folks with elongated heads. Now, this is very interesting also because we found these connections to these folks with elongated heads, even coming from these Uralic mountains. So yes. Not only does the ancient Hungarian sort of look like ancient hieroglyphics, which is interesting, but in the Ural Mountains, absolutely. And in the Ural Mountains, we have something called the Dashka Stone that can be seen 30 miles up from space. It's an ancient topographical map of the Earth. There is a connection to their progenitors coming in from these places. And not only that, but the Hungarian scientists, who we know were called the Martians, which Jay Weidner has pointed out that the highest IQs in the world actually come from Hungary there, which is very, very interesting. The connection that we have to these folks and places, we find that in Egypt too. So Mohammed's talked a lot about before with Osiris, we look at him connected to Sirius. This is like where we get the word Sirius, like the planet Sirius, Abu Sir, or we could say Sir or Sire, like the old gentlemanly titles. But within this connection we find with these elongated folks, we also go back into ideas, looking at even at Nimrod or Oannes having this fish hat or the mitre like the Pope wears. What can you tell us about the connections to ancient Egypt or the Nimrod or the Phoenicians with folks like that?
Yeah, so when we take a look at the Mount Nimrod in Turkey, we can see those sculptures with the elongated heads. First of all, I wouldn't say that they had elongated skulls, but the elongated head is definitely represents someone who connected to the divine or the gods. And there is also an interesting connection of Nimrod and the Hungarians, because when we take a look at the history and the origin story of Nimrod, we know that Nimrod is the son of Cush, who was the ancestor of the Scythians and the magicians, who was respected as the sun, just like in the Egyptian culture. And when we would like to understand what the name of Nimrod means, and in the runic language, the name of Nimrod is set out from 3 signs. So Nim is the panther, Ru is the son or the child of someone, and Ud is the god of the sun. So altogether, this is the panther son of the god of the sun. And how the panther can be connected to the Hungarians and to Egypt is that Panther Dei is the totem animal of Nimrod, and the Egyptian name of the panther is Nebrod. So it refers back to the name of Nimrod, and the Egyptians believed that wearing a panther skin represents the resurrection of the god self.
So yeah, there's a very interesting connection. Mohamed, when you look at the panther, and that's a very interesting name. I know Jay knows that too. When we say Pantera or Panther, we look in the mysteries of Bacchus and whatnot. But Mohamed, where would you say the panther fits into the mysteries? Do we find a connection at all into the Sphinx of the sun as well? Well, where would you go with that?
Oh, of course, yes. Panther and lions and leopards were popular animals in ancient Egypt, and they all have a connection with the universe, not connections to Earth, no, actually connections to the stars. When you see any priest carving on the walls of the tombs of the temples with the skin of the leopard, we understand immediately that this is a person is connected with the observatory. He will have the title astrologist, or someone is connected or watching. They exactly have this title, the watcher of the sky. So we know that this is an important title. He is not just a person just staring to the sky all night. No, he is like writing or realizing the movement of the stars, maybe, or the alignment of the stars. So as academics, we understand this fact immediately when we see any priest or any person in general on the wall depicted with the leopard skin or the panther skin. And sometimes on the left shoulder, they represent the head of the panther, the face of the panther. That also part of his title. And when we talk about the Sphinx and the connection with the sun, yes, the Sphinx has a very famous title, Hor Em Achet, Horus, who is in the horizon. So the sunrise time or the sunset time. It could be the horizon of the east or the horizon of the west. So not only the sun, but also Horus. And we know that Horus was considered as the son of Ra. We know that Horus is the son of Isis and Osiris. But Horus is considered as the direct son of Ra, and that's why we have the title Ra Horachti or Horem Achet. So yes, for the lions, for the panthers and the leopards, they are in a very strong way connected with the stars.
Now,
there is an interesting connection here with the panther skin, because Mohamed, you mentioned that it was worn in the left shoulder, right? Yes. So when we dig deeper a little bit into the clothes and the and the trend, the fashion trend of the Hungarian nobilities in the 18th, 19th century, we can see that the panther skin was, they wore the panther skin on the left side, and that was the very meaningful part of the dresses and the clothing of the Hungarian nobilities.
That's interesting because that relates to what I was going to ask Jay. Because when you go back into the Austro-Hungarian Empire and you go look at the Bavarian secret societies, which is something we're going to talk about a lot on this tour, on how when you look at, let's say in Freemasonry, how you have an apron. Well, where do you think that comes from? All the traditions come from there. And that's something I was just going to ask Jay about. When you go back into places like this Austro-Hungarian Empire, you look at the Habsburgs and the secret societies that have come out of there, and where the mysteries sort of originate. Jay, would you say that Egypt has been the great place of keeping, like a great museum for the mysteries? Would you say that there's anywhere greater in the world that holds on to the mysteries?
No, nothing competes with Egypt. It's interesting because when you start looking at Egyptian history, you realize that they didn't just stay in Egypt. In the summer, when it was really hot, they would take boats up into south of France and go in the Provence area where all the wine is growing, and they would summer there. Or they would go to Ireland too, in summer in Ireland where it was cool, and also in Hungary and in all through Europe. So they had a bond with the Phoenicians. They were probably their closest allies, and the Phoenicians were sailing everywhere to the Americas. They were mining copper in Michigan, and they were getting cocaine from South America, and we know from the cocaine mummies. So the Egyptians weren't just settled in Egypt. Egypt was where I believe a previously very long civilization got destroyed 12 or 13,000 years ago, and the survivors built Egypt. That's what I think, in order to ensconce their knowledge and to make sure it never got lost. And that's why they built it like they did. They didn't have to build it so severely, right? But they did. They wanted to make sure that nothing could stop these buildings. Nothing could destroy them. Nothing ever could hurt them. And that the knowledge would stay intact. And although it did not stay intact, people like Mohamed and others are doing a really good job of regrouping and going back and bringing back that knowledge so that we can really understand what made these people tick.
I completely agree. And that's why each and every single one of you watching should ask yourself, is it time for me to go to Egypt? It doesn't matter what year it is. There's always some reason or some excuse in the world why people say to themselves, oh, maybe I'll just put it off to next year. Maybe I'll put it off till next year. And, you'll always be saying that, should I go? Is there some reason or some excuse in the world? There's never a better time than now. And not only do we have the most exclusive permissions, the best pricing, this isn't just a vacation. You can ask yourself, is this not an essential trip? This is a research trip. Sure, you're taking a Now cruise. We're being safe. We have social distancing. We're outside. Why hasn't Egypt had a lot of cases? Well, number one, you're outside for your markets, open air temples. There's a lot of frankincense burning in the air, which is a natural disinfectant. There's incredible heat. And you also have these extremely energetic buildings, electromagnetic grids being transmuted through granite obelisks and pyramids. Everywhere you go, you're going to feel it. But I promise you, as soon as you get there, even staying that first night in that magnificent hotel, which you're going to love when you look out the window or get up in the morning for your coffee and your delicious breakfast, which the food over there, by the way, is amazing. You're going to see.
Yeah, you need to mention that, Johnny, because that was the thing I found surprising about Egypt was how good the food was.
It is. It's the best food ever. And there's so much to pick from. You're going to see the Great Pyramid. You're going to see all this. Zsuzsanna knows, she's been there. Jay's been there. One thing I know is when Mohammed's come to America, and sorry, Mohamed, to tell this story, but when you came to America and you were attending a conference, the one thing you said to me, Johnny, I love the Americans and everybody here is very nice, but I have to get home to my wife's cooking because I miss the food in Egypt so much. I don't think, McDonald's and Subway and everything in the hotels were cutting it for him. So the one thing I'll tell you, you're going to love that, everybody, but it's a great time to go to Egypt. People have been going there and, they're having a great time. They're there. I know people there right now. And it's been voted the best post-pandemic place you can go to. We're going to see more and more of this opening up out of May and into June. Right now with Egypt, the great thing is that people keep saying to me, well, I don't want to go. I'm just waiting till next year because right now you have to take a test. And, I do believe, in the years ahead, there's going to be more conditions on traveling. So right now it's just a test. But for example, Egypt does not require you to take the jab at this point. It just requires a test. So keep that in mind moving forward. Now, I don't know if Zsuzsanna or Jay wants to bring up anything that people have talked to them about travel concerns, but Mohamed, can you alleviate everyone's concerns? What happens if somebody gets there and let's just say in the highly unlikely case that they did, start to not feel well, it would just be a matter of there's lots of different medical help if they did have an issue, but they'd have to stay behind in their hotel room for a bit. And then you'd let them join the tour later and make up for the time they missed. Is that correct?
Yes, they will be completely under the best treatment. And this treatment is not going to be provided through me, which of course I'm going to help with this, but the Egyptian government itself is the one will do this, and they send to all the Egyptian travel agencies that anyone will get the infection or not well, so he will stay for free in the hotel until the recovery. Okay.
Right.
And yes, I can easily take the person to the sites, either with the rest of the group, or if the group was already left, it will be a private tour. But let me tell you something, because that is not my concern. I know that people who will come to visit Egypt will come safe and leave safe. And yes, this is what is happening. We have now 20% of the Egyptian tourists back to Egypt already. Eastern Europe and Russians and some countries from the old Soviet Union, like Kazakhstan and similar countries, and some British, many Americans. And we didn't have a single case of COVID-19 for those visitors. But I may want you to pay attention for two things. The first thing, that this is the best time in my opinion, because you will find that most of the sites empty. So our group is going to enjoy the empty sites. And as if we are having private permission, private visit in almost everywhere. Number two, because of the situation last year and this year, so the price is, in my opinion, is a great price for such a tour.
Oh yeah.
Trust me, next year, if things will go back to normal, this price will be at least 50% higher. At least it could be double price next year, with all the high quality of service and the private visits. So the price we are offering this year is a very competitive price in compare with next year and the other years. Okay, so that is my message. And the last message: if it is not safe, I will not join you people. Okay, I will not join this.
Here's the thing too, is that we do offer a deposit refund minus the transaction fees. If you do have to give a refund, the transaction fee is about, what is it, $200 from the credit card companies? Yes. Is that what it is? So this, when you take this tour, you can know with confidence you're going to move forward. And it is, it is a research project you're about coming on, because Jay Weidner is also going to be doing sort of a media project at the same time. Not only are you a part of a live discovery process that we're all researching, we're investigating the mysteries that just so happens to take place in very, very nice hotels, a beautiful Nile cruise with a gorgeous, beautiful African moon that comes out at night, or in the daytime, it's the sun, of course, but in the moon that comes out at night, you're sitting around on the upper deck of a Nile cruise with the most amazing, beautiful smells and incenses and fragrances that are floating around, and that breeze that's hitting your cheek, and you're got some hibiscus or carcade tea out, and you're talking with your friends, your new friends, which, by the way, everyone you meet on this tour will be a lifelong friend of yours. I promise you that. You'll always remember these people. You'll always be in contact with them. And you're sitting around outside on that deck, talking about all the amazing things you witnessed. The dreams that you're having at night are incredible. You want to talk about astral projection and etheric bodies and all that sort of stuff. Think about when Napoleon visited the Great Pyramid in 1798 and came out white as a ghost because he saw his Waterloo and left his body. Think about Paul Brunton in The Search for Secret Egypt in 1930, who spent the night in the Great Pyramid and left his body. I'll think about all the people that go there and have these incredible activations and awakenings. Now is the time. With what's happening in the world, these alignments and energies, there's no coincidence. If you're supposed to be here, I promise you, you will have the adventure of a lifetime. So if you want to sign up, please check out the description for links to join our tour and contact Mohamed or one of us, and we'd love to see you there. Jay or Zsuzsanna, Mohamed, do you guys have anything else you want to leave everyone?
I just say that I really think that you're almost going to an Egypt that hasn't existed for 50 years. Not crowded, because the Egypt craze just started like 30 years ago in the United States. So this used to be, you could go to Egypt and not be crowded out. This is your chance to go enjoy something I don't think you're ever going to have again.
Absolutely. Zsuzsanna, do you have any final words?
I totally agree with all of you about this, that's the time. That's a unique, never coming back time. So here's the time to come. And I think that it will be a life-changing experience for everyone who will join.
Mohamed, any final words for anyone out there?
Look, in general, and especially these days, when you come to Egypt, you come to the motherland. Egypt is your motherland. I will explain more about this in the tour. When you come to Egypt, you come to the catalyst. Do you want to re-energize yourself? Egypt is your catalyst. Egypt is the place where you receive the link of your rebirth. So that is my final word.
Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you in Egypt.